Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Adam Hancock. This is the Florida Relocation Guide, your smartest way to buy, sell, and or invest in Sarasota greater area. Today I want to talk about, like the title suggests, some predictions of sorts. I have 8 topics that are kind of thought exercises I want to explore. I think it's a good time. We're in November. It's a weird time in Sarasota right now with the storms and the holidays and all this kind of stuff. So we're really gearing up for Q1. And I have some things that have recently happened that I think will continue to happen to hopefully give you an advantage. We're going to talk about the juxtaposition of the progression of inland suburbs stretching, the Northeast Lakewood Ranch parish onto, Welland Park. We're going to talk about, can bad or less desirable parts of town historically be solved by master plan concepts that insulate it? We're going to talk about the storm effects on the suburbs versus the coast, missed opportunities in 2020 that you can get today. I have a golf update for you. Talking villas versus single families and a lot more. So I think this one's interesting. The one thing I want to mention before we hop in is a newsletter. If you signed up for the newsletter in the last few months, we've been kind of trying to revamp it, but I'm revamping our newsletter. It's no spam, once a month, maybe bi-monthly if I can get my crap together enough to do it. It's kind of like this video, but way shorter form, and it gets real-time kind of beat style reporting. So we have a lot of information, and it's a lot of it's time sensitive. A lot of it doesn't make sense in a whole video by itself. So I used to do this Adam's rumination kind of brain dump email where it's just like bop, 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 bullet points. People really liked it. And it's just like the closest you can get to what we're getting in real time without like waiting till Sunday to watch a video that you might not see what you want to see. If you have the opportunity, sign up for that. I'll try to drop the link actually on this video. It's definitely in the description. So anything that says anything like newsletter, do that. Trust me, you're not spammed. If you are, tell me and I'll stop it. I think it's one of the best things that we produce, and especially if you're not someone that would download a PDF or something like that, please consider signing up for the newsletter. It's the most helpful area that I think I can be if you're looking to relocate. So with that being said, without further ado, let's hop in. All right, point number 1, no particular order. What I've been seeing a lot lately, especially over the last 6 months, in more volume than previous, they're still choosing those master plan suburbs, of course, especially in Southwest Florida. But instead of just choosing the suburb itself, I'm seeing a lot of this heave over a tipping point of leaning into the fringe part of those suburbs. So for instance, Lakewood Ranch, Florida, 12 miles city center-wise-ish to the town itself, the beaches, all the stuff you move to Sarasota for. Well, a lot of folks are moving into those areas that are 19, 20, 22 miles, just above a couple cross streets. Paris, Florida, more extreme version, 28 miles one way versus 12. Welland Park, a lot of the new developments are going even further south. It's all bleeding into this, borderline your address is going to be Englewood or Northport in the future here, where previously in most years, that would have been a deterrent in a lot of people's eyes because you're just too far. You're like, okay, I'll move to Lakewood, but I'm not crossing this limit of whatever this imaginary stretch of too far versus not too far. What I'm seeing happening is people are saying I was never really going to move to downtown Sarasota. It was never 23 miles to Star Farms versus 2 in the middle of Bay Vista. It was always, I'm going to live in a suburb already, and I'm most likely in my criteria, if I'm looking on the fringe, I'm in the same criteria that's maybe 16 miles one way or 15 miles. So all I'm doing is stretching the 15 to 21, or all I'm doing is stretching Star Farms from 23 to Parish being 28. If you look at that juxtaposition, it's not a great sacrifice in a lot of people's eyes, but what they gain in house is huge, literally, no pun intended. You get maybe that 62-foot front plane lot, and you get that 3,300 square foot house with a 3-bedroom, 2.5 den, a bigger backyard, versus if you try to jam that into the lower part of Lakewood Ranch, maybe it would have been the 52. Maybe you could only afford the Farnese versus the Palazzo or the Lincoln or something like that. They're getting that pool where they would have not gotten it because they saved 150 grand, and now they can do the pool build and that whole patio and screened in and the travertine and all that, where they wouldn't have been able to because they wanted the bigger house. They would have lost the pool. The space in general, thinking about amenities, what Del Webb Catalina is going to do. I mean, you see these restaurants and all these things that aren't in normal non-golf based communities that are just ridiculous. They have these huge lakes and all this kind of stuff they can do out there. And I'm just generally seeing it as a lot less of an issue. We're going to talk about in a minute here, especially when it comes to the storms and all that kind of thing. And if you can lean into that before everyone else has done so, you can gain a pretty big benefit. Okay, number 2 is going to roll right off the back of number 1, and that is simply, how much does master plan really solve any geography issues that may exist? If developers carved out, let's say 3,000 acres, and they have 11 to 14 neighborhoods, they build all of them from scratch, the roads, the infrastructure, even the trees, the plants, and the grass, everything completely from scratch. Would it matter once you got over there realistically day to day, where that's set in town? You know, a great example, if you took Waterside's district of Lakewood Ranch, if you dropped that in any part of Sarasota, any part of Manatee, would it not feel really similar once you got over there? Seaflower is a great example. Seaflower, the new one, if you haven't heard me talk about, is above the SRQ airport, above the, the tennis, the Bolletary Academy and all of that, in western Bradenton mainland, in an area that typically is not laden with new construction beyond Palmasola, is a little bit choppy house to house, value to value. It's an old area, it's up and coming, all that kind of stuff. What Seaflower is going to do is drop something similar to what I just described. Is they're going to drop, not as big to start, but probably eventually, a defunct flower farm turned into 1,500 acres that are going to have 7, 8 builders that you've heard of, building it all from scratch. They're going to have like a town square around a big lake, farmers markets, all that kind of thing, in an area that is unbelievable on a map. If you're not that familiar with Sarasota, but you're looking at geography alone on Google Maps, unbelievable. 3.2 miles to the beach, Longboat Keys right there, Bradenton Beach, Anna Maria Island, the bays in between. But once you get over there, it does not feel like that. If Seaflower immaturity is there, does that change the conversation? North River Ranch is even a simpler example. North River Ranch in Parrish, that area again, 28 miles one way to the stuff. And you could say, oh, it's not that far from Tampa, not that far from Sarasota, which I agree with all of it, but it's still 28 miles one way from why most people move to Sarasota. If you work, if you commute, you're dealing with all of that. Well, they built a place that makes the argument for, especially if you work from home, of how often do you have to leave, how often do you want to leave, but you gain huge benefits when it comes to cost. I mean, if you want to really take that on steroids, look at Sunbridge in Orlando. That's built in like St. Cloud, like would not be necessarily a destination spot historically. Look at Sienna, south of downtown Houston, Easton Park outside of Austin. Look at the Grove in DFW. These are all spots where you can make the argument of if you pick them up and drop them in other spots, would it take away a lot of the negatives that came with geography and logistics of the town themselves? So I'm going to let that rest, but I think an interesting thought exercise. All right, number 3 is a little bit of a sensitive one, but I just want to touch on it because I don't do this a lot. But that is the idea of the effect of the recent storms and the hurricanes within the Southwest Florida area to the suburbs. And, you know, if empathetic wise, like I grew up on Siesta Key. My parents in the first one, not even the second one that hit Siesta Key directly, the first one that had the surge from Big Bend, lost everything. Lost their cars, they live on a canal, they lost everything. They're on High Gold, parallel to the ODA Academy. I get it if you're watching this and you were affected, trust me. What I want to talk about is, you know, the unique geography of Southwest Florida when it comes to how they line the master plan to the coast and like how that day-to-day lives. You know, because if you go from the downtown Naples all the way up to like West Sea Chapel, so you're crossing Collier County, Lee, you know, Charlotte, and all through that, Sarasota, Manatee, Pinellas, Pasco, Hillsborough County, all the way covering the Southwest Florida corridor. And look to the right? That's the simplicity of this, the water being left, is you look to the right and you sit in that 10 plus mile range. The stack of the new construction suburb master plan concepts, way greater in Sarasota and a little bit in Tampa, and then I would say third would be the Naples, but it's unique. You have some of the most unbelievable coastline historically, and then you have some of the biggest, sexiest master plan concepts in the United States as a whole that hug these small towns. But if you take the way that 10 to 15 miles lives versus jamming your way in just to be closer, what you gain, I think, is tremendous security. I mean, no one knows what's going to happen, right? A storm hits Big Bend, and my parents lose their house in Siesta Key. Like, no one knows, like, these are 100-year events, right? So I'm not going to get crazy about the insurance and all that kind of stuff, because these are disasters that are mostly out of our control beyond preparation. I lived in the Isles. My really good buddy has a couple houses in Summerfield and Lakewood Ranch. Most of our agents live in the Lakewood Ranch area, at least north of Fruitville. And just the effect on the recent storms to them versus all my friends and family that live on the coast is insane. But you're talking 15 minutes further to drive to stuff. And not only do you kind of buffered by that kind of stuff, but you gain mostly everything. You gain new construction, which gives you the modern coating, impact windows. If hopefully, one of the benefits of, you could hate platted new construction, but one of the benefits of being in the suburbs with platted new construction is everything's underground. You know, a lot of the internet's underground, the power lines are underground. It's just stuff that if it already existed, it's there, right? You know, if you're in the, you know, like the Isles is a great example, you run that university corridor and people like, I hate seeing power lines. Well, that's just because that stuff was already there. Again, the loads of benefits you gain because people think it's a bummer to live that far from the coast. I just think in Southwest Florida, what it gives you the benefit, it's not like Orlando. You're not an hour and a half versus not. You're talking 15, 18 minutes in a commute that if you're from the Northeast or any of these areas, like, I mean, I talk to people that are 5 years removed from living in like New Jersey, and they're like, yes, there is traffic. There's not no traffic, but the traffic is palm trees and you know, beautiful water, and I'm driving over bridges. I'm not sitting in smog traffic. So even perspective, I think the negatives aren't that negative in comparison. So, you know, if you look at, so with that being said, I mean, I think that's where a lot of this is going to go. It's just people are like, I'm not going to, if you've been through one of these events and you're on the key, I just think people are tired. You know, I don't know. I think my parents are going to, they'll ride that out for the rest of their lives for sure. But I think people are tired. And you look at like Babcock Ranch in Punta Gorda, you look at like what Lakewood Ranch is doing, Parrish is like saying like, maybe I should look at that. What Wesley Chapel's doing, east of Brandon, you got Alva, North Fort Myers, and then you throw on top of like Del Webb's and all these in the conversation. So I don't want to get too crazy here, but it was just a thought. I mean, I think like if you see what happened 2 to 5 miles from the coast from what happened 15, 25 miles from the coast in the same exact town, insane about the rebuild versus the not, and let alone like the insurance costs that are going to come with this and all this kind of stuff. It's just something to think about if you're moving to Southwest Florida, is that the benefit is that we do have the option of one or the other. And a lot of coastal towns in Florida don't. You know, if you go inland, it's not Lakewood Ranch that sits beside you. You know, it's just random towns with these random houses that were already there. So anyway, that is point number 3. All right, point number 4 is kind of a random one, but what I've been seeing in kind of the advent of the world we live in now of all of this development, all this new construction going on, where things are being pushed east and north and south naturally because this stuff was already built in front of them. I've seen developers start to back their way into carving out little tiny pieces of land to do these small concepts in desirable areas where you couldn't build another 500 to 1,000 homes. And a really good example of this is the new Waterbury Park, if you've ever heard of that. That is, it's brand new, but it's in the Lakewood Ranch area. And it's going to be like 21 total homes built by Neil Signature. It's this little sliver. But where it sits is on University. It's above the Isles by Toll Brothers. It's adjacent to the Lake Club. It's right by the Del Webb, the original one. It's an area that people really enjoy, but you just can't simply do one of those bigger concepts. And then what they're adding on top of it to kind of sweeten the pot is a uniqueness and a boutiqueness of a home style, size, etc., that'll allow people to get something that it would be hard to replicate. You know, if you loved, this is kind of a niche example, but if you loved the Lake Club at one point, especially the previous regime before stock came in, you loved Wild Blue, maybe the Oaks down in Nokomis, and it just didn't work out, wasn't for you, maybe you don't want 600 neighbors, maybe the timing didn't work out, whatever, then this would give you another shot. You know, Neil Signature, the semi-custom outfit, is going to do, you know, 3,500 to 4,500 square foot homes here. There's going to be 100 plus front width planes. You know, that's not your average. You know, most of these neighborhoods don't even go up to 90. And then this one comes in, it's probably going to be 1.5 to 2.5 million on average, where maybe, you know, Monarch Estates with John Cannon next to it is 3 to 8 million. The concessions is expensive, and Kingfisher Estates down in Waterside is a little bit more expensive. So they're trying to add layers that would fit 21 people, not everyone, but are also in areas that people want to be to that you can't do again. So this is the thing, is like it looks like there's a billion homes to pick from when you look at these areas remotely, but when you get into your unique criteria and you start to chop it down, whether it's timing or whatever it may be, criteria, all this kind of stuff. A lot of people don't even have a short list of 2 to 3 in my experience that they would actually buy versus each other. And a lot of reasons that people don't buy at all fit in this crowd of being like, perfect, but I don't want to live in Star Farms or, you know, something like that. So anyway, I think it's interesting. I think you're going to see a lot more of this because it does not take a lot of land to accomplish. They're no frills, not amenity rich, but if you want a nice luxury boutique house in a beautiful part of Southwest Florida, this is a great way to achieve it. All right, point number 5 is especially for that person that was sitting here in 2019, 2020 and hasn't bought yet or bought something they regretted, but also is for the new people, and that is the idea of missed opportunities and what you can do today. There are a lot of fantastic releases that have just come out or about to come out, especially in the Sarasota Manatee area, that are versions of what already has happened that people were obsessed with at the time they happened. So whether you want to get early in for equity, you want to get the new version of what you used to want, but you don't want to buy the resale of that one, this is a great thing to look at, and history is a great predictor of the future in this realm. So Del Webb Lakewood Ranch, people are obsessed with. It was one of the only 55 and up new construction at the time. And then Crestwood came in, of course. But Del Webb Catalina is the new kid on the block. It sits directly north of it. It's going to be unbelievable, very similar floor plans to what they've always done, but the amenities are going to go from broke. Del Webb Bayview was the parish version of Del Webb, and Del Webb is the 55 and up active adult living brand of Pulte, if you weren't familiar. But Del Webb Bayview Parish is where I would take people to juxtapose Del Webb Lakewood Ranch. You could save $150,000 to $200,000 a floor plan at the time because of the sacrifice to the location. Well, Del Webb Sunchase is now the new version of that. Another great example is the Esplanade brand. So people have always been obsessed with the Esplanade brand by Taylor Morrison. It's some of the best trade-off of amenities for the cost and floor plans on each size of the collection. Just amazing orientation. Beautiful, beautiful communities, amazing amenities, and a lot of options. Well, so they basically had a bunch of Esplanades in Sarasota, and then they built Esplanade Golf and Country Club out in Lakewood Ranch. People really like that. It was deeded golf, which we're going to talk about in this video as well. And then Esplanade Zario hit, and people went crazy. What's happening now? And then Esplanade Sky Ranch. So really, the last couple of years, we've had Esplanade Zario versus Esplanade Sky Ranch. Very different communities, very different location. So Esplanade Welland Park is the new one. It's out by the Mayaca Ponds Golf Club. I've talked about that a little bit. That's gonna be like 850 total homes. They're gonna have the Bahama Bar out there, and that has basically close access to all the Welland Park stuff. Potentially golf in the future, not now, but gonna be beautiful. And then they're gonna build an Esplanade in the Waterside area that's above Wild Blue, I believe. So these are two to really look at that I think will go as crazy, especially the Waterside one, is gonna go as crazy as anything has over the last couple of years. And it'll give you another chance. Take a fresh chance at the villas. The condos in some of these communities take a fresh chance at the collection like the Farnese and the Lazio at the 52 foot. I don't think they're gonna do a lot of the Bacon and the Lincoln with the larger lots here, but you're gonna get the Palazzo in play here. There's a lot of, the Roma, there's a lot of opportunity if you get in early, and think about the phases. The phases is almost like, in a lot of ways, it's almost like, it's a weird way to say it, but it almost price fixes comparable values. So if they're gonna build a community that's 1,000 homes, for instance, especially in this kind of market, it might take like 3-5+ years to build that out. Well, phase one to the end of the phases, think about how all the appraisal values are made. Like they don't want these things to underappraise when you're in contract, right? So think about the rate, them trying to time everything. Taylor Morrison, huge company, them trying to time phase 1 to phase 3 to phase 4. If you get in early potentially on these, and if you guess right, and you get the right incentives and all these kind of things, then it almost guarantees, the old world, it guaranteed like $200,000 to $300,000 of equity, but it almost guarantees you're good. So while they're building yours out, while you get in pre-amenity, right? Because you're taking a chance because there's no amenities yet. A lot of times you'll benefit in a 50, 100+ K in equity if you can play your cards right. No guarantee, of course, but I think it's a really interesting way to invest, even if it's your homestead. Okay, point number 6 I'm gonna hit just because I just mentioned that Roma in Esplanade, the model, made me think of it, is the idea that villas are really becoming in vogue. Like if a lot of people from out of state, they don't think of villas like we think of them in Florida, but a villa in Florida would just be like two houses that are attached in a master plan new construction neighborhood. It's the ones that I'm speaking about. They're the closest thing that live like a single family without being it, but there's a lot of perks. And I think one of my greatest mistakes I've ever made, especially in the last like 10 years, was I had a video, I forgot which video, but probably in 2020, where I was like screaming from the rooftops at the time. I wasn't liquid enough to do anything, but I was screaming at the rooftops to buy all the villas you possibly could think of inside the Windward community by Neil. They were like 260 grand, extended patios, and I was walking all these models that were like next door that were just single family. It's just the idea of villa versus single family that a lot of people, probably rightfully so, are thinking about resale and all this kind of stuff. And they were like $200,000 difference in price, but very similar square footage. And when you got inside, they walked similar. A lot of villas have 2-car garages. Literally, it's like two houses that were touching, but it doesn't feel like it once you get inside. And those villas, the amount of those that sold for $500,000+, $600,000 like 3 years later was monumental. Big regret of mine, but can't go back in hindsight here. Yeah, we've been seeing that become a big, big thing. It's something to really look at, is if you look at these 14 to 18, 2,100 square foot villas, They sit in these new construction neighborhoods, and they have the cheapest HOA because of the size. A lot of the HOA fees cascade by size. They have shared amenities and maintenance because the roofs touch. A lot of the lawns in these communities now are turnkey, you know, it's built in the HOA anyway, and it allows you to get in unbelievably desirable areas. It's like the better version of doing a condo. A condo you get in great areas because they use height instead of width for land, so they can pack units in a stack. But a lot of condos, most condos are like fiscally, it's not that responsible of a decision because you're just laden with fees and reserves and all these kind of things, assessments. Villas are the opposite. You get maybe all the perks, less of the benefits other than perceived value on resale. So if you look at like the Neal Villas, Taylor Morrison's, you get in these Esplanade communities, you could buy into deeded golf. And they were selling these at $350,000, $360,000. If you're like a snowbird or you want to buy one while your 5,000 square foot house is being built, or you want to just buy something into deeded golf, which is very hard to come by. Like you're like, okay, I'm building a Arthur Ruttenberg house over here, but I want to deeded golf into Lakewood National or the Calusa National, the new version, one of the Esplanade. This is a fantastic way to do it. And I would really, if you've ever taken a look and you're like, oh, I would never do a villa, I would really take a second look. And we've seen this switch in people's minds greatly. If you think you're taking a chance by buying new construction right now, I mean, really think about this. Look at the cost differences. All of these communities hop in width. If you have different collections, they're like, Neal has these 5 collections, or these guys have these 6 collections. Look at what they're doing. It's either going to be home type and or it's going to be width. So they're going to, say a villa is going to be home type 1, right? It's going to be a narrow lot, 2 houses attached. And then typically they're going to hop to like a 40-something foot width collection. And then they're going to hop to maybe 52, something like that, hop to 60, 62, and then they go from there. Look at the price differences in the smallest single families versus the villas. This is where I'd really focus. I'd look at Neal, I'd look at Taylor Morrison. Homes by Town has some really, really sweet, very, very small homes. And then you can get in the most desirable areas of the entire town, in typically the most expensive areas of the entire town, and you be sitting over here while everything's over here. Even if you don't take it from me, just the pure data is showing that this is where people are really leaning from risk mitigation and potential equity upside. Okay, I just want to hit 2 more updates for this particular video, and this one is for golfers. If you're looking in the market right now and you're a golfer, I have 2 quick updates as far as communities and timing, and then we're going to do more content on this as well. So the first one is called Calusa Country Club. This is the new version of Lakewood National, which was in Lakewood Ranch. Just sits right beside it. So it's all Lennar, the big spec builder. Pre-sales started last week. We're looking at timeline here. And again, we're going to do more stuff on this. You can reach out in between, but we expect the course to be completed around January 25, single family home delivery starting around April 25, and then condos around August or like somewhere in the summer of 25. So a lot of people bought investments for these. A lot of people, this is just, again, a great and affordable way to buy into deeded golf, which is a little bit scarce at the moment. The second one's probably on the opposite end of the spectrum as far as type of community, and that's called Soleta, S-O-L-E-T-A. This is going to be really, really unique. This one is a Nick Price designed 18-hole course, David Ledbetter design academy, practice and training facility. They're attracting just world-class staff from all over the place because of the prominence of who's building this thing. Under 100 homes total. It's all going to be Anchor and John Cannon, so a super custom outfit. Also weirdly family friendly, so it's not going to be pretentious custom. It's going to be like a throwback to old Florida based on the location and everything. So I think it's a really nice, like, refreshing change to like a lot of what's being built right now. It's at a premium, 1.7 plus, but you could do like the 3 to 5 million, really, really nice stuff out here as well. What else? A couple things from timing. It's supposed to be this month in November 24 that the golf course opens to members. Fall 25, we believe there's going to be the completion of the lagoon-style pool. Full food and beverage facility is supposed to be there as well, the kids club and the performance center. And then early 25 somewhere, anticipated vertical construction of custom homes. Believe 14 to 17 homes are expected to be underway by the first quarter. So both really interesting. Again, reach out. We have a lot more detail than that. And let me give you one more update. All right, my 8th and final point I want to make today, I'm just going to kind of deem as filling the gaps. I talk a lot about bookends, Parish, Northeast Lakewood Ranch, Welland Park, these opposite ends of town. Well, what's in the middle is Sarasota itself. And there is that whole same eastern inland area that's the same distance to the coast and all that kind of stuff. We don't talk about a ton. And that's the area that's maybe 10, 11, 12 miles east of Siesta Key, the real central area. Well, there's a community out there right now called Sky Ranch, which a lot of people really enjoy. It's quite beautiful. You had a community out there called Artistry. There's another one called Worthington that was across the street from that. Grand Park's over there. And then a lot of just old school Sarasota, all the neighborhoods that kind of surrounded the Twin Lakes ballpark. And then the reason it's 10 miles is, all that in between is this kind of hodgepodge of random neighborhoods. That's where like a lot of the Mennonite country is and Pinecraft and all that. Well, what's going to happen, and the reason I'm saying filling the gap, is that's going to change quite drastically from, let's say, 2024 to 2040. And it's really going to get, the point here would be, it's going to be a nice third option. That's a nice juxtaposition. So you're going to see this area called 3H Ranch, which is going to be like 12 to 14 different neighborhoods. There's going to be Pulte, a lot of the normal built Neil's all going to be in there. In my opinion, they're going to build master plan areas that look like kind of like a waterside. You're going to have commercial and office space around a bunch of different neighborhoods, and it's going to look a lot different than just randomly Sky Ranch sitting there in the middle. The reason we talk about these others so much is they look like they do online. They look like full Pleasantville. When you get there, it's simple. It's cool, it's beautiful, it potentially looks better in person than it does online, and that is rare. You drive over to Sky Ranch, it looks like a random, nice neighborhood in between what you can't make context of if you're not from Sarasota. In the future, it's gonna look quite different. But what I do think it'll do, it won't look exactly the same. So maybe Lakewood Ranch's traffic is getting too crazy. Maybe you don't wanna commute from Parrish. Maybe that's not for you. Maybe you want new construction and you do like the idea of communal amenities, but you don't need 33,000 acres of it. And maybe Welland Park's too far south, something like that. And a lot of people deem Siesta Key as the holy grail. Like I said, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I grew up bordering the island. My parents have lived on the Key for the last 20 years or something. And so I'm romantic about it. I get that whole thing. I love Lido and downtown as well, but a lot of people feel like that's the reason they moved to Sarasota. That is what they picture when they picture Sarasota. And this area gives you a little bit closer access to it. If Waterside is a certain distance to Lido, well, this is your Siesta Key version. So anyway, I'd keep an eye out for that. If there'll be a lot of opportunity in the future there because it's so vague and ambiguous that I do think, just like early Welland Park, is if you can make moves envisioning what it may be before people can see what it actually is going to be, then of course you'll get an advantage for that trade-off. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Again, my name is Adam Hancock. This is the Florida Relocation Guide. If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. We're gonna be trying to get as much information as we can out as frequently as possible, and that's the best way, just to get notified that it's coming. If you resonate with anything in this video and you are curious, you're currently attacking something related to the Southwest Florida real estate market, please consider reaching out. We have an amazing team, full-scale residential brokerage. We know a weird amount about probably more areas than a lot of people do because we go really vast, because I'm into the geography part of it. So all of Tampa Bay, all of Sarasota Manatee, all of Naples Greater, we can cover all of that very cohesively. Call, text, email. We have a fantastic newsletter that we're revamping. One of the best things you could do to get a bead on a more consumable version of what I'm doing in this kind of video is the newsletter. So monthly, hopefully bi-monthly, we're gonna try to get you the best information, the latest and the greatest in a very bullet point, bop format. And it's almost like a beat style reporting thing. We have a little bit higher level. We have relocation flip books for like Southwest Florida as a whole, help you juxtapose simpler. We have analytical tools, all kind of stuff like that on the main website. What else? You can schedule a direct call, like a no pressure kind of call with the broker herself, Tana, who's amazing. We have agents that fit everything you're possibly trying to do. If you're relocating from New Jersey, you're a French Canadian, you are in the military, in MacDill, anything in between. You're a mom, you're young and you want to find a cool area in a typical retirement kind of style of town, you're my age, anything in between. We have an agent, I guarantee you, that we can match you with that's already done what you're trying to do maybe 3 years ahead of you. And then you have me as well, and then you have Tana the broker as well. So we tried to build the best mousetrap for relocation. But if you don't do any of that, I appreciate you guys spending even a minute watching my content. We'll see you on the next one.